Have you ever wondered what it's like to be slapped around the head for 90 minutes with a baseball bat? I'd not pondered the thought until encountering this film. The two experiences, baseball bat and the movie, I imagine are much the same. While the title suggests another chapter in the Jurassic Park canon, the scary monsters present here are very much internalised creatures of the id. This is Tyrannosaur. You will hear the F word 11 times and see a man kick his own pet dog to death. No, that's not a spoiler. It's the first 58 seconds of the film. So with an opening like that, I'm pretty sure the writer-director is telling an audience, don't expect this to be a pleasant picnic in sunny Yorkshire. What's delivered is one hell of a bleak vision of life in an English town. You can almost hear the echoes of those grey British 1960s kitchen sink dramas, full of frustrated working class men and socially and sexually disenfranchised women, all handcuffed to an ignoble existence. At first glance, they all look like victims of a systematic class-defined poverty, but the real demon is usually revealed as stunted emotional growth, fed by fear and self-loathing. The problems are internal, not external. Fast forward half a century and nothing's changed, for this too is the emotional landscape of Tyrannosaur. The characters are just as out of kilter with their own aspirations, and the locations are just as bleak. Tyrannosaur started life as a short film written and directed by Paddy Considine. As an actor, you might have seen him in the cult 24-Hour Party People, as the underemployed actor father in America, and as the journalist in an episode 3, I think it was, of the Jason Bourne show. But in 2007, Considine's first directorial effort, a 16-minute short called Dog Altogether, barked loudly and gained the attention of many. In fact, it won the BAFTA award for Best Short Film. The premise of the short? A man kicks his dog and hang on, isn't that what happens at the start of Tyrannosaur? Yes. Tyrannosaur is effectively a remake of the 16-minute short, plus an additional 75 or so minutes of what happens next to the character of Joseph, that's the dog-kicking man, and Hannah, the kindly lady from the Christian charity shop. In writing Tyrannosaur, Paddy Considine started exactly where Dog Altogether left off. Hannah offers Joseph a cup of tea and he assaults her character. All these preconceived ideas he has about her life, just face value. Okay, let's see if you're right, and he couldn't have been more wrong. Now, I don't want to be tossing spoilers at you, but while Hannah looks like a happy and content church lady on the surface, her emotional burdens make Joseph's look positively plain. Still, Hannah appears to interact with the world in a functional way. She offers prayers to the sick, playing compassionate wife and spray and wipe housekeeper of the year. What happens to her is both harrowing and bewildering. So entrenched in trying to make her impossibly wrong marriage right again, reveals a truckload of fear, denial, guilt, all about her failure to be able to fix what's around her. Olivia Colman, cited in films like The Iron Lady, Hyde Park on Hudson, and the Brit TV series Peep Show, Rev and Broadchurch, blew me away when I saw her in this role. It is edge-of-your-seat, lip-quivering stuff, and I'm talking about my lip, not hers. The fragility, desperation and suppressed anger make for a mesmerising emotional cocktail. It's a case of watching an actor strip away all artifice of technique and present a rawness that at times is hard to watch. I felt like I was intruding. We're not playing a game here, actor and audience, where we know it's just pretend, and that's a kind of agreed contract that means I'm not really having to face the truth sitting out here in the dark watching what that woman is doing on the screen. Nah. Olivia Colman tears up that contract, tosses it away, and she's not letting the observer off the emotional hook for a second. You feel as if you are standing in the room with her, not observing her on the screen, and that's just too real for some people to cope with. I can think of maybe only 5 or 6 other scenes in films where I felt like that, just moments in a film, but Olivia Colman keeps it up for the full running time. For anyone serious about studying acting, watch this film, watch her. Very high praise also to Peter Mullan. Now, it's interesting to see how clearly defined Mullan's character of Joseph was in the original short film, and there was a little hint there that didn't make it into Tyrannosaur. It's a moment when he opens a drawer in his bedroom and it's littered with all manner of half-consumed pill packets and bottles. You don't have to read between the lines to see that Joseph's instability is at least partly due to a diagnosed mental illness, and he's been through all manner of medication to help balance the turmoil. A couple of times you will hear him responding outwardly to an inner dialogue. Interesting that the drug control reference was there in the short, but not in the feature, and it would have been interesting to find out why the choice was made to drop that angle on Joseph. I found it an interesting one. We do, however, see in both films, the short and the feature version, that he's well aware of his breaking points, sometimes too late, but he does manage to catch himself just in time quite often. He's a volcano, often on the brink of eruption, deeply afraid and at times loathing his inability to function rationally. Explosion, remorse, guilt, explosion, remorse, guilt. It's a vicious cycle. Hannah says at one point to Joseph, "I feel safe here," and his reply is, "Nobody is safe with me." Now here's Hannah feeling safe with a self-aware man who kicks dogs to death. That's one damaged woman. Reading comments online, some people found the final reveal of Hannah's actions to be extreme and unbelievable. Okay, there's something to debate there. Even Paddy Considine said the piece was almost Old Testament, and I'm kind of with him on that. The brutality, revenge, the seeking of salvation, it runs deep and repeatedly through the film in both theme and literally in the action. The players' lives are almost cursed. They're forever in a colliding circles of poor judgment and external forces that perpetuate a kind of ritualistic chaos. You know, Joseph's like Orestes possessed by the Furies, and Hannah like a sacrificial Iphigenia, unable to escape the brutality forced upon her, but still praying for intervention. She maintains some sense in a God that is all-forgiving and that her pious acts will somehow rebalance all the negativity. Girl, get a grip on it, please. Sometimes you just have to wipe the slate clean and start again. And the film asks, can one significant blow, if it's big enough, cleanse the bloody path that has led to it, or is it just perpetuating the cycle? Despite all of this, Tyrannosaur is still a story of hope. Did I say hope? Yes, I just said hope. By midway through the film, you will see the foundations of an understanding between these disparate and desperate people that begins to emerge. But don't be fooled. You can still catch a rerun of 4 Weddings and a Funeral on telly if you want a pat ending. Unfortunately, in tales involving this much antisocial behaviour, retribution will always be waiting just in the wings, ready for a quick entrance. On the film festival circuit, Tyrannosaur won a lot of attention. Olivia Colman picked up a truckload of acting awards from wreath tossers in places like Croatia, Greece, Sweden, France, Germany and Romania. Who would have thought? At Sundance, both lead actors and the director collected trophies. Overall, the film picked up more than 30 international awards for the actors, writer-director, and quite a few Best Film gongs. If you do a little online hunting, you can find interviews with Paddy Considine and the cast of Tyrannosaur. Try the British Film Institute website, there's a great interview there. You might also be able to find Dog All Together, the original short film on the Tubes of You. Makes for an interesting comparison. Is it a real standalone piece or just an audition to get funding for the feature? Feel free to discuss that idea. I'll often throw this into a review, the weakest and the strongest elements of a film. In this particular case, the weakest, I'd say, is probably the last 5 minutes or so. Are they really necessary? Could the film have ended at, well, I'm not going to tell you, but you'll figure it out what the dramatic climax is. And if it did end at that point, what consequences would follow? Worth a thought. The strongest elements. Okay, number 1, rock solid script. Top marks, Mr. Considine. It's a knockout. Number 2, 2 of the most amazing performances I have ever seen on film, let alone in the same film. And thirdly, atmosphere. Difficult thing to define, but look, it's a combination of things like lighting and art direction and the pacing of the editing and sound effects and all of these elements that cooperate to create atmosphere. Also, the very sparse music score, it augments the visuals, adding detail on a totally different level to the edgy inner world and the bleak outer world. It's very sparse, but I think it's a really interesting score. And it's also interesting to see what other reviewers have had to say. One comment I thought particularly insightful came from Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian, who described Tyrannosaur as an expression of people who create their own ecosystem of anger and unhappiness. Well put. Here, the habitat, that bleak town, feeds on itself. It's a toxic place indeed. But to the animals who inhabit it, well, is it just home? End.